I'd like to open the Tuesday, November 19th Planning Board. We are set to go into executive session to discuss a legal matter, and we intend to come back out of executive session when we're done. So I would like, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81BB, to discuss strategy relating to pending litigation known as Gregory Nichols et al. Versus Planning Board of Town of Westport for the definitive subdivision plan known as Marquardt Drive. If the chair declares that discussing the matter in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board, he may call to bring it into executive session. A vote regarding whether to go into executive session is expected, and votes may occur during the executive session. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81BB, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation known as Gregory Nichols et al. Versus Planning Board of the Town of Westport, because I declare that discussing the matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the board, and with the board to return to open session following.
So moved. Second.
It's a roll call vote.
Manny Swan, aye.
Mark Schmidt, aye.
Jim Whiten, aye.
Bob Taylor, aye.
Okay, we're just returning from executive session. Just to reiterate, this is the Tuesday, November 19th, regular planning board meeting, and it is 6:03. First up are administrative items. Assistant planner vacancy.
Last night, the select board voted to appoint Dia Wheeler to the assistant planner position, and we've discussed forwarding her name to the select board already on this board, but didn't have an opportunity for the board to vote, and so we'd like for the planning board to vote to affirm the select board's appointment of Dia Wheeler to the assistant planner position.
Okay, and she's going to start January 2nd.
January 2nd.
Okay. So entertain a motion to report back to the select board that we have approved the selection of Dia Wheeler as the assistant planner.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, can't wait. Next up is Chapter 61A release, file number 24-035 CH61A. The select board is requesting comments on release of land owned by Daniel G. Richard and David L. Taylor, located at 533 Horseneck Road, map 73, lots 73, 74, and 76.
This should look, and the address should sound familiar. This is well, as Jim said, this is some Chapter 61 land that's currently being used for farming for ag purposes. Property to the rear is owned by the land trust, and this is a property that came before the board for a 4-lot A&R, creating 3 buildable lots along Horseneck Road. 4th one in the back. You can see up there is a non-buildable 2.88 acre lot. So the board's already seen this, and at least understood that the land was going to be taken out of chapter.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to suggest to the select board that we have no issues with having the town release their right of first refusal on this Chapter 61A land. I don't believe, having looked at it, that it would be anything that would be imperative for conservation or any other use of town.
I agree, but I just had a question about the parcel A, because I see there are purchases for the 3 lots, but I don't understand if the parcel A is being transferred to one of those owners, the owner of lot? Or is it staying is it staying in the current ownership?
Couldn't say. It's also being taken out of chapter 61, and the lot is unbuildable. It doesn't have road frontage, doesn't have any access conveyed to it. So it's not developable, but will it be sold to one of these other property owners? Yeah, I couldn't say.
Maybe the land trust will be given the land trust, who knows?
Or it could just sit there for decades. So, but anyway, that is also coming out of 61A? Because it isn't listed here.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because it just mentions lots 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay. Stand corrected, it's not being taken out of chapter 61.
So what?
It's not being taken out. I said I stand corrected.
Well, it won't qualify for 61A if it's only 2.8 acres.
Right. I think it comes out by default. They can't renew it.
Yeah. And so,
I don't think the town has an interest in, public interest in acquiring this property.
Right. Especially for these prices.
Right.
Okay, so we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we have no objection to removing this from 61. And,
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is the 650? No. So, let's see what else we could do here. We could start the planners report.
Sure. Some updates on our shared use path in the north end of Westport for the Mass Trails grant and building out the connector from Fall River into Westport. The consultant and the conservation agent went out and did wetland flagging and created the GIS for that as well. So that's been completed. They started doing traffic counts in the area, and they're going to have a preliminary or conceptual design hopefully sometime soon here. And our bike and walking path committee are going to go to the community preservation committee to request some funding for match for future Mass Trails applications. They're going to ask for $12,000 from the CPC, and the South Coast Bikeway Alliance will provide us $3,000, and the planning board depends on where we're at and different grant applications and approvals that we have going on, but we may be in a position to provide some funds as well. Last application provided $5,000, so that would give us about, if do the math between those three different sources, it's a 20% match on that, so it gets to $100,000 that we could put in for a request, which would be more than enough to design out the entire northern route across Westport. So That would be a spring 2025 application, and would we receive funding, would be implemented the next fiscal year. And an update on the culvert replacement project. This is the culverts at Angeline Brook, at Cornell Road, and Snell Creek, and Lions Brook at Drift Road. The Buzzards Bay, we're partnering with Buzzards Bay on this, and they've taken the lead on administering this grant. They've done site reconnaissance and resource delineation. They've done the topos for the area and the base plans. They've developed existing conditions-based plans, and they're doing the hydrologic and hydraulic studies. And they're doing the conceptual plans for replacing the culvert at Angeline Brook. So this is all in the service of developing the preliminary plans to then move on if we receive funding through that grant that we applied through the Federal Highway Administration. That was a $3.4 million grant. That would bring all three of these projects all the way through construction, or design and then construction. But at least for now, we'll have those base plans available to then go and look for other grant opportunities if the Federal Highways Administration doesn't work out.
Okay, and so the reason that we're doing this is because these are cold water streams, and we want to restore the fish habitat?
Yeah, they're restoring the fish habitat. The culverts are undersized, so they're not able to accommodate the stormwater flows during high rain events, and with climate change, those stream rain events will continue to increase. Some of them really are less of culverts and more cinder blocks and,
Old stuff.
yeah, very old stuff.
These are old, and they don't meet any of the kind of wildlife passage abilities, including getting fish up through these culverts, so they'll be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, 6:15.
6:15.
Sorry.
So I'd like to open the 6:15 public hearing for Little Compton Housing Trust, file number 24-028C-RRL. The applicant is proposing to use the existing 50-foot right-of-way for access and utilities to the Little Compton land to construct a 4-lot, single-family housing development located at 245 Old Harbor Road, map 86, lot 6. So, one of you like to come up or present at the podium?
Certainly. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Don Medeiros from Able Engineering, professional land surveyor, professional civil engineer. We're here tonight, continued, pending the comments from the consultant, MLB. We have satisfied MLB based on their comment letter, where they were satisfied that our design complies with the Mass Stormwater Handbook, and the comments satisfactorily addressed, with the exception that they could not approve the waivers, so they noted they're satisfied, subject to the board reviewing and granting the waivers. I believe Mr. Burris's list of comments have also been satisfied, and again, subject to the board granting the waivers. So we're hoping tonight to review and discuss the waivers. Any other questions from the board or from the public as directed to us from the board? And we're hoping the board would, by the end of the night, close the public hearing, consider and discuss the grant of the waivers and vote on the waivers. And should the board see so inclined to grant the waivers, we would ask that the board then give definitive plan approval tonight.
Okay, I do have a question. The way that I read what's written here, it talks about a 4-lot, single-family housing development. And the drawings all show that all the housing in Little Compton is on 1 lot.
That is correct. The drawing showing the Little Compton portion is basically conceptual. It's basically put on the plans to show this board what is being proposed, as opposed to just asking for approval for a road to nowhere, so to speak. The Little Compton Housing Trust, they're in the process of trying to decide if the 4 units will be on 1 lot, or if they will actually try to do a 4-lot subdivision where 1 unit per lot. We know they're looking at sharing a septic system and sharing a well or wells. So right now, it's either or, but the proposal is 4 units, so whether it's 4 units each on 4 lots, or whether it's 4 units on 1 lot.
Okay. One of the reasons I bring that up, and this is really the Little Compton Planning Board problem, not ours, is that our rural residential lane requirements are that it supply frontage to no more than 4 lots. And this road provides access for 5 lots, right? Five housing units.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman, and I believe that is in accordance with the requirements for the rural residential lane, which says access for no more than 6, frontage for up to no more than 4.
Right. So, Michael, you wanna?
I think this proposal has adequately addressed both staff concerns and the consulting engineer's concerns. There are a couple of waiver requests which I think the applicant needs to discuss with the board. And those would be for the proposed name of the street needs to be shown on the site plan. Obviously, they don't know that one's not really a big deal. That can be added on an as-built plan later on. But they need to talk to you all about a waiver for the typical cross sections for a rural residential lane. They're showing side slopes on the shoulder of the road exceeding a 3-to-1 slope, and they also are not meeting the stormwater standards for volume control and the basin's location, as well as a 20% reduction of stormwater flows. They're achieving a 5% reduction over the existing conditions. So those are the various waivers that need to be addressed in order for this plan to receive approval. Everything else, all the small, site plan standards, submission standards, and all of that have been adequately reflected on the plan sets.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at this plan, and I don't have an objection to the granting of the waivers. The volume offset is largely for development impacts, and the development impacts are all in, whatever they are, they're not associated with this driveway or this road, and it's really not in our jurisdiction. It's all in the Little Compton jurisdiction. But I did have a comment, just some of the practical aspects. There's a swale on the southern side of the road, and it discharges onto the surface of the ground on the east side of the driveway into the McKinnon home.
That's correct.
I don't, no. I'm sort of exercising my duty to the citizens of Little Compton, but just as a practical matter, you know, that's the kind of stuff that can cause a problem, and it would be very beneficial, because the grades are sloping down towards where you're proposing. If you just extended a pipe from the end of the swale under the driveway, just as simple as could be, then you're bringing the water, it's still on McKinnon property, but at least you're bringing the water to where you could manage it in the development, and not creating a puddle in the front yard of Mr. McKinnon. It's a small matter, but these are the kind of things that people come back and say, hey, I never had a puddle in my front yard, you approved this, and now I got a puddle in my front yard.
May I
Yes.
address that? Thank you. That's a very good point. So we are going to be proceeding with the design in Little Compton, so that is a possibility. If the grades will work and we can put a culvert under the McKinnon's driveway, we will. We were comfortable with the swale outletting where it does for a few reasons. One, because it's within Massachusetts and under the purview of this board. And also, the existing driveway, as it stands now, has no drainage features at all. There are no swales.
Yeah.
My experience doing hydrologic analysis and reviewing, topography and stormwater tells me that quite a lot of runoff goes down that driveway at a pretty good clip. And so I believe we are mitigating the amount of runoff that comes to that point, but I agree with you that that's not the ideal situation to have that swale outlet without getting a pipe under that driveway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small matter, but Westport and Little Compton can work together on small matters, and probably in big matters too. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I think I would vote to approve this and it's supporting affordable housing in Little Compton, which is something we all need.
So the stormwater on the south side, even if it outlets right at the border of Massachusetts and Rhode Island there, is this going to impact stormwater onto the host property of Cummings?
No, I think they carried that successfully away from Cummings.
I think the consulting engineer's report also concurs with Bob. NBL said that they didn't have any concerns with the waiver requests, but ultimately it is the purview of the board whether or not to grant those waivers. So I just want to add that they didn't object to them.
Anybody else? This,
Yeah, I had some concerns about the waivers for the 25-year and 100-year storm events and the drainage, but I have utmost respect for my colleague, and so I was interested in his opinion that this was not, that this waiver could be granted. It's just my uneducated opinion about climate warming and the magnitude of the storms we have these days, which seem to come in faster than 25 and 100 year, and the amount of rainfall that can happen in one time seems greater, so, and, you know, I'm a little, I always have some hesitation about any plan that does not provide for this. The requested reduction is 20%, correct? And this is slightly exceeding
They're reducing by 5%.
by 5%. So,
And that's 5% of the pre-development
yeah.
conditions,
yeah.
so there will be somewhat less stormwater
Yeah.
generated on site than the existing conditions.
Right. Okay, I mean, so again, I'm not a civil engineer, I'm not, I will defer to the experts in this subject. Just a comment.
So, I'd like to understand the request for the waiver for the 20% reduction. Is it because you want to contain all the stormwater from this road in Massachusetts? Or is it your inability to deal with it once it gets, if it got too Little Common?
Mr. Chairman, the reduction that we're asking for, it's basically because we do not have adequate room. I mean, a typical subdivision is a piece of land and it's a clean slate, and you have the ability, the engineers and all involved have the ability to move things around and massage things and whatnot. We're basically constrained to this 50-foot wide strip of land by 225 feet, roughly a quarter of an acre. We're constrained by the existing topography at the boundaries of the right-of-way and the property lines. We're constrained by meeting the grades to blend in with the McKinnon's driveway, which we have, with meeting the grade at Old Harbor Road and blending in there and putting in a proper leveling strip, which we have. We've also, in accordance with the stormwater management objectives, we've tried to minimize the amount of clearing and land disturbance that we're doing. All that said, we've also got existing utilities in the right-of-way too, where the swales have to account for those. There's an underground electric line and a utility pole that we're having to go around. There's a utility pole near the entrance that we have to also go around and leave safe clearance between the edge of the gravel and the utility poles. So the reason we're not meeting the full 20% reduction is quite frankly, we really don't have the room to be able to grade swales, get the 20-foot minimum gravel with the shoulders and grade the swales, and not be grading over the limits where we're allowed to do so. And one thing I would say, you know, the regs call for 20% less than existing. We're providing a net decrease in stormwater of 5%. But as I alluded to, this is a very small piece of land, a very small project. The 100-year peak rate of flow is only 1.7 CFS. The 25-year is only 1.1. I think a lot of projects you see, I imagine those numbers are much higher because you're dealing with larger land areas. So I just, you know, when we talk about percentages, it also has some meaning if we think about the actual quantities that those percentages are derived from.
So the answer is yes, you're trying to keep the stormwater in Massachusetts?
Oh, sorry, I didn't answer that part of the question. No, the answer is no. The existing stormwater is generated in Massachusetts and runs into Rhode Island. We're not altering that drainage pattern. What we're doing is we're slowing it down. We're providing water quality treatment where none currently exists. We're providing non-erosive conveyance where none currently exists. When that water does cross the state line into Rhode Island, we will be dealing with that on the Rhode Island project. So we will be addressing the decrease in the stormwater. So I don't know if I answered your question fully.
Sort of. Okay, this is a public hearing, so is there anybody here that would like to speak or ask a question?
Good evening, I'm Paula Cummings. I own the property for the right-of-way. And I just would like to make a comment. Number one, these people knew what they were dealing with when they bought this property, so that hasn't really changed. But I'm not interested in having water dumped into my property now to make it, because they can't somehow figure out how to keep up with the 20%, reduce it to 15. And once it's done, and once it's approved, we don't have, today our storms are not as, they're different than what they were in the 100-year storms, I think, as Mr. Schmidt. That's my comment, and that's, you know, I just don't want it, the water dumping into my property.
It seems to me, I'm not the expert, but it seems to me that they're doing what they can to keep the water from that constructed road, primarily going into the swales that are on the south side of that, and traveling to the west, where Mr. Daler was talking about making sure that it goes underneath the McKinnon's driveway. But I think it looks like there'll be less water than previous, like today. Because I think that driveway there doesn't have any kind of stormwater things on it. So everything that lands on it slides away, and some of it goes onto your property. It's all your property, but I mean, some of it travels more than it will.
Travels away from it, you're saying?
It doesn't come across your property as much as it would today.
Okay.
The plan showed that they're gonna catch the water that's now running off the driveway and then run it into, under the McKinnon driveway and then eventually onto the project that they're building.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Kerry McKinnon. I live at that property, 155 Old Harbor Road in question. This is the first I've heard about the possibility of pooling on our property. So I just want to express some concern again. As stated, we've been there 30 years, and our utilities and what have you, once we hit the state line, come underground. So I have mentioned it, and I know that was noted, but again, just some concern about the plan and you know, how it would affect our property, certainly. And then just one other question. It was mentioned tonight about a waiver for a road or a street, or changing the name. I'm not familiar with that, so just wanted some clarification on that.
Do you have a name for your driveway now?
No, currently we just use the address 155 Old Harbor Road. It's not any other name. Mm-hmm.
I find it really odd driving up Old Harbor Road. The numbers don't make sense.
It's very difficult, yes. We've questioned that over the years, why Rhode Island and Mass didn't work together. Today, for instance, I have a package that was delivered somewhere in Rhode Island or Mass I'm still looking for, but it's been the third one in 3 weeks, so yes, that is interesting. But again, that's up and down the road, certainly.
So I think the fire department would certainly like to have this a named street. So our fire department, so they're the ones who are gonna probably respond, because even though it's in Rhode Island, it's practically in Westport. I mean, it's, the only way to get there is in Westport, so.
So this would be considered a private road in Little Compton then,
It would be a private road in Massachusetts.
in Massachusetts, accessing Little Compton.
Right.
But we would retain our, again, probably a dumb question, but a Little Compton.
That's up to Little Compton and you, I think. I don't think that's up to us to number your house. So I would assume it would stay the same. I don't know. Or you could probably get a number off of this new road if they're gonna have numbers, but you're totally in Little Compton?
Yes, sir, we are.
It's beyond my pay grade.
But again, what's proposed here, then it's a gravel road.
Gravel road.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, then I would entertain, for each individual waiver, I would entertain a motion.
So I can read them off. I can read them off.
Please.
I don't know if you have them listed, but, so these waivers are from the Town of Westport Rules and Regulations governing the subdivision of land. Would the board entertain a motion for section 3, a waiver from section 3B, 3D to waive the requirement to indicate the proposed street name on the definitive plan?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Section VD2, waiver to allow an increase of 0.01 acre foot of 10-year stormwater volume.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Section VD7, waiver to allow a drainage design that does not achieve a 20% reduction of peak stormwater runoff.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Section VD11, waiver to allow a drainage swale less than 10 feet from an adjacent property boundary.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And section 4A3, waiver to allow shoulder slopes in excess of 3 to 1.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair, I move that we close the public hearing.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like a motion for approval.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the
Motion
proposal.
with conditions.
I'm sorry.
A motion with conditions. 'Cause there are some recommended conditions
Okay.
for approval.
You want to read the conditions?
Yeah, so the recommended conditions are that a restrictive covenant is necessary for this road because a rural residential lane cannot be transferred to town ownership. It must remain a private road. And so their following notes must be added to sheet 1 of 2, subject to a restrictive covenant Form F dated to be recorded herewith the Bristol County Registry of Deeds book and page, subject to a restrictive covenant Form FRRL dated to be recorded herewith in the Bristol County Registry of Deeds book and page. Homeowners Association is necessary as a condition of approval of this subdivision. The applicant shall create and properly fund Homeowners Association. All purchasers of land within the subdivision shall be required to belong to the Homeowners Association. The Homeowners Association shall be responsible for the maintenance, repairs, and plowing of subdivision roadways. The Homeowners Association shall maintain permanent ownership of any drainage basins or ponds in the subdivision, including all pipes and other appurtenant devices, and shall have the permanent responsibility of maintaining, repairing, and replacing said drainage systems as necessary. And the Homeowners Association documents shall be reviewed and approved by the planning board in consultation with town council at the expense of the applicant, and the Homeowners Association shall have an initial fund that is deemed satisfactory to the planning board in consultation with the planning board's technical consultant. For road maintenance and snow removal, applicant shall be responsible for periodic maintenance and snow removal until such a time a properly funded homeowners association is created and is properly functioning. 5, construction work on the subdivision road and utilities shall only be done between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. 6, the rural residential lane shall not provide access to more than 6 lots in Little Compton, Rhode Island, and Westport. 7, the accepted street name must be included on the as-built plan. And then, just to note, the endorsement of the approval is conditional upon provision of a performance guarantee duly executed and approved to be noted on the plan and recorded with the Bristol County Southern District Registry of Deeds. And form of guarantee may be varied from time to time by the applicant, subject to agreement on the adequacy and amount of said guarantee by the board.
Can you repeat that, please?
Mr. Chairman, I have I would move to approve it, but I have a question. And it's really a question for the applicant. This is our standard language, that do we approve rural residential subdivisions that form a homeowners association? The homeowners association share joint responsibility for the maintenance of the road. I don't know, are these houses gonna be owned by the housing authority, or, I mean, is there going to be a homeowners association if we vote that you have to have one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, again, my name is Patrick Bowen. I'm the chair of the Little Compton Housing Trust. It's certainly in the Housing Trust's best interest to ensure that this rural residential road is maintained over the long term. At this point in time, there is no specific plan for a homeowners association per se. It is the intention that each of these 4 single-family homes would be owned, purchased by individuals or families. And so, whereas the Little Compton Housing Trust will likely retain ownership of the land on which these homes are built, certainly the Housing Trust will have an interest in ensuring the provisions that Mr. Burris has recited.
I just wanted to have that, I mean, for instance, if you were gonna, if it was the housing trust that was gonna own all the homes and the, you know, my point being that there may not be a homeowners association, it's just on the other side of the town line, it's just the land of the housing trust, but, if you're okay, if the intent is to actually sell these to people, then I think our language is okay.
Thank you. Anything further? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the subdivision way with the conditions as read by the town planner.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the 6:30 public hearing for 1180 American Legion Highway, file number 24-033 SPA-LID. The applicant is proposing to construct 3 storage buildings located at 1180 American Legion Highway, map 28, lot 32F, 32J, and 32H.
Good evening to the board. Attorney Mac Long here on behalf of the applicant, Katie LLC, with our engineers, Sean Leach and Ed Pesci, who's joining us via Teams or Google Meet.
Do you have all that? Andy?
I can get his last name.
Ed Pesci. Yes, so as the chair mentioned, we're here because we are looking to construct 3 additional storage buildings at the premises known as 1180 American Legion Highway, formerly the St. George School. The intent here is to create additional storage. As shown on the plan, we have 2 additional buildings to the south of the existing structure along American Legion Highway, followed by a 3rd building in the northeast corner of the premises, all for additional storage. The intent here is to further develop and maximize the property, as the prior use was just grass and just sitting there unused, and so we are looking to develop and maximize what we can with the property here as described. I believe there are quite a bit of comments from both our town planner, and we've reviewed the engineer's reports from SW Cole and are aware of a few changes that have been requested, and are prepared to address any comments and concerns the board may have before moving forward.
Okay, so I just want to go over one item. I think you've been to the Zoning Board of Appeals
Yes, we have.
to get approval to locate this in the Aquifer Protection District.
That is correct.
Okay.
We received a special permit from the ZBA. That special permit was on a slightly different plan. We then went back before the ZBA, and it has been explained to us that they would like us, once we have completed our plan and site plan approval has been acquired by the planning board, they'd like us to go back for a final review and basically amend the special permit or renew a new special permit based on the new plan. The change, most significant change from the plan that we shown at the ZBA hearing was we had originally shown a drainage basin to the east of this 3rd third storage building. But after the calculations were completed for the drainage analysis, we were able to determine that just one drainage basin will be necessary. So the ZBA felt that that was a significant enough change that they'd like us to go back. Our hope is that we can button things up with both the planning board as well as conservation, and then go back before the ZBA for the special permit, as well as a waiver for parking requirements. The parking required under the zoning bylaw is used based on warehouse space, and it requires a bit more parking than we feel is necessary, and so we're going to be looking to get a waiver on that as well.
Okay, I haven't read that decision.
Okay.
Sorry about that, but
I can give you
the intended use is for storage.
yes,
correct?
yes.
I don't believe that that is listed in the table of use as an allowed use
In what?
in the town of Westport.
For the aquifer protection or for the
General use. So we have a zoning bylaw which has a table of use,
okay.
and it says specifically in there since 3 or 4 years ago, anything not listed in the table of use is not an allowed use.
Okay.
So I think if you're going back to ZBA, you might consider getting a variance from that, or asking for a variance.
Sean, are you aware?
I don't know if it was determined whether or not. I don't think that the zoning board had made a determination that it wasn't allowed use or not.
I don't think it was before them, is a question.
Well, just one thing that I want to make clear is that the planning board doesn't review the uses themselves. It goes to the
Right.
building
I'm
inspector.
not
and the
saying that they
ZBA,
have
so-
to get that before they come here.
Sure.
So,
As far as I'm aware, we are approved as an existing use for the storage. We've been operating as a storage facility here at this site for going on 2 years at this point. And as far as we're aware, everything is in compliance. Ralph is well aware of the storage use that's there, and it's our understanding that everything is as it should be.
We're not in a position to opine. I'm just alerting you that
Understood.
in the zoning bylaw, it's not an allowed use,
Okay.
so. So we have a lot of questions here. I think the fire department is concerned that the access, I guess, to the back building or the side building is too small.
We met on site with Lieutenant Darren Nunes actually on Monday of this week and reviewed the plans, discussed everything, and as far as he's concerned, everything is okay. The main concern was that we had proposed a use of a gravel driveway here. After discussions with the fire department, they requested asphalt, so it is our intent to provide the planning board with an updated plan showing asphalt as opposed to gravel. Easier to maintain, easier for access for the fire department. Michael had commented on doing a one-way situation here where we access and drive around the facility. We're in agreement with that. Michael, it might be easier if we go to the parking plan. I think that's the 5th on here. One. There's one more after this. Yeah, this is perfect. So accessing from here, as it's currently accessed, coming north by the existing structures, looping around, coming down through, and then exiting to the south. So it would be one way. All access roads would be 20 feet in width, which is as required by the fire department. On the sides of these buildings, we do have 2 driveways proposed. Lieutenant Nunes actually expressed that this was unnecessary. They, as long as they could have 150 feet of reach, so from the corner of the building here out 150 feet. This building is 165 feet long, so if they park here, they can get almost to the corner, and then from here, they can park here and get around the corner. So he expressed that that was completely fine, and that they were okay with that as it was. And just for notation, the fire department expressed that they do not need to have access between the existing building and the proposed structures, just that they'd be able to get in and around all the facilities.
So that even if it isn't a paved road between the existing buildings and the new buildings, there where the 2 buildings are,
This stretch here,
is it accessible by a fire apparatus?
in this area,
Yes.
currently there's a concrete driveway and gravel here. It is our intent to show on the future plan after comments from SW Cole regarding ADA access. All of these buildings will be at grade, so there'll be ADA access from all the various doors here. But we wanted to add an additional ADA access off of this proposed concrete driveway with a handicap ramp here. So if we do add the handicap ramp there, there would not be room for the fire apparatus to come through. Even at this point now, it'd be tight. And as I mentioned, Lieutenant Nunes said that that would be okay. They don't need to drive between the buildings because again, from here, they can get in between here and here. They have reach on all 4 corners all the way around.
Okay. So we have the letter from SW Cole. Do you want to go through that item by item, or how do you?
I think Michael's report covers both SW Cole's concerns as well as the town's. It might be, for sake of time, it might make sense to go through Michael's report line by line.
I'll leave it to Michael.
Sure, so some of these might be touched on. I might talk about a couple things that are referenced in both the engineer's review and my overview, but just if I'm repeating myself, just bear with me. So the consulting engineer is fine with the drainage. The drainage is discharged into wetland. I would recommend that the applicant follows up with Mass EPA just to see if a NIPD's permit is required because it is discharging the wetlands flow to the Westport River. So I would recommend that they follow up with that. But otherwise, the consulting engineer is fine with the drainage. They noted that you have to note the underlying zoning district on the plan, which I'm assuming is a reference to the Aquifer Protection District. It just needs to be put on a plan. Show the dimensions of proposed structures. Show the ADA access to new facilities. Will they need to travel on gravel surfaces? That's been addressed by changing over to asphalt. The operation and maintenance plans for all stormwater systems on site shall be provided. I think the consulting engineer missed the operations and maintenance plan because that was included with the submission, so we'll have them take a look at it and approve that. For my report, the context and locus plans have to include the following additional information. A context plan provided at a scale adequate to show all structures within 200 feet of the subject site, as well as the north end of the site where there's the bituminous concrete driveway that provides access from Union Avenue, and then show any existing features at that connection. So if there's going to be fencing or alongside the driveway or a gate restricting access, anything like that should be shown on the plan. The zoning information block must indicate that the site is located with the Aquifer Protection District, same thing the consulting engineer said, and the total area of wetland resource area should be noted on the plan. The existing conditions plan should show the general soil types from the NRCS soil survey. The development plan should include the following information: any existing man-made features to be removed. I noted that the site plan shows that there's a playground down there, so that's just one example of any feature that will be removed should be noted on that plan. Any proposed features on the driveway providing access to the site from Union Avenue, such as fencing and gates, should be designated on the plan if that's applicable. A landscape plan must be included that shows the exact number and location of existing and proposed landscaping, showing number, type, and height of new plantings. The applicant shall provide this detail for formal landscaping installations. We don't need that for some of the existing wooded area, naturally wooded areas. You know, there's some significant vegetation in the wetlands area, and we don't need them to go through and designate each individual tree in those areas. So general delineation is sufficient for those locations. And then we do need building elevation drawings. So for the parking and loading areas, that's been addressed. I had initially said that the applicant must provide for one-way vehicle circulation around the site or increase the width of the gravel travel lanes, providing access to each proposed building. They were ranging somewhere between, I think, like 14 and 17 feet, but now that they're being extended or being widened, that addresses the comment. The landscaping perimeter buffer. There's an area underneath the utility lines on the western property line that has a significant amount of vegetation, and the landscape plan does not show vegetation in this area, so the site plan should indicate whether or not that vegetation will be there, or if it's going to be cleared, indicate where it's, delineate the line of where it will be cleared to. And also recommending additional vegetation, so like a row of shrubbery or small trees between the adjacent residential properties and the subject site. I also noted that the tree species used for the screening should not reach a mature height that causes conflict with the overhead utility lines, and The applicant is also providing, I forget the name of the species, but the evergreen species that they've proposed is not deer resistant. And that's always a common thing when we have landscaping come before this board, is that deer resistant species would be ideal so that landscaping actually is able to grow and mature. So the additional buffer area along the street frontage, that is included. However, as I noted, the landscape plan must indicate the exact locations and species of each tree and shrub. Plantings for screening shall be added along the western property boundary. And then if clearing is to occur underneath that site, that area has to be delineated accordingly. There's some standards that the site plan rules and regulations spell out for tree plantings, and that those are deciduous trees must be at least 3 inches in caliper, as measured 6 inches above the root ball at the time of planting. Deciduous trees used for screening shall be inspected to reach a height of 20 feet within 10 years after planting. Evergreen trees used for screening shall be a minimum height of 8 feet in height at the time of planting. Just depending on how high those overhead utility lines are, the board may need to consider a waiver if they're going to propose, because you don't want trees that will grow to a height of 30 feet and then cause conflict with the overhead utility lines. Shrubs and hedges shall be at least 2.5 feet in height at the time of planting and have a spread of at least 18 inches. And these planting standards shall be indicated on the landscape plan, just as a note in the landscape plan. As I noted, the Leyland cypress trees are located underneath the overhead wire, and those can mature to a height of 40 to 60 feet, so that's going to cause conflict with the overhead utility lines. They're also not a deer-resistant species. The applicant shall indicate building entrances to determine whether adequate lighting is provided, and we need to know the maximum height of each structure that should be added to the site plan. I had a note on here stating that the rear yard setback was not adequate and that they were encroaching into that rear setback area, but that's not actually correct. They're meeting the rear setback area. It's 26 feet. They're within, or they're outside of that area. I would also recommend that the planning board require vegetations integrated with the drainage basin to create a bioretention area, and that the proposed plant species on the site are native to the greatest extent feasible. This comment's pretty much been addressed, this next one. The entrances of the proposed building shall be designed on the site plan in order to assess adequate pedestrian accommodations. With it being a paved surfacing, I think that better provides access to those buildings, particularly as it relates to ADA compliance. And lastly, the proposal requires a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals from Zoning Bylaw Section 8.3.1 to reduce the required number of spaces. I would support this variance. I find that the number of required parking spaces for storage use is unnecessary, and that they're unlikely to be utilized if they're added to the site, and then would just result in an unnecessary amount of extra impervious surfacing, which isn't great for local water quality. And as mentioned earlier, the site discharges to the Westport River, so it'd be better to reduce the amount of excess impervious surfacing if there's an opportunity to do so.
Okay, I have a question about the stormwater. So I think the plan takes into account the additional proposed storage buildings for roof runoff, correct?
Yes,
And
it provides an overall reduction. So what is being discharged currently as opposed to post-construction will be an overall reduction. And our engineer, Ed Pesci, can comment further on the specifics of that if you'd like.
so where is the stormwater from the roof runoff now going?
All over the place, essentially.
There's no attention.
It flows south to north across this site, oddly enough. It flows opposite where you think it actually flows.
So if you're on
down the driveway, it
this
flows
side, it's,
out to the other side.
and then kind of somewhat, it pitches into the grass on that side.
So are you grabbing a hold of the roof drainage from those existing two buildings?
Yeah, the drainage plan calculates and is pitched so that any runoff that's currently going this way now will be collected and added to the pond.
There's a requirement on the drainage for infiltration under the Aquifer Protection District, and the required infiltration is being met as part of the attenuation of the swamp.
And the Westport River is exposed all the way?
No,
The Westport River's over here.
it's a wooded wetlands from everything you see on the, I don't know if you can see it, this squiggly line, the light squiggly line.
Yeah.
So that is the tree line that won't be, basically will stay in place, nothing's being disturbed. The only thing being developed is existing grass for the playground and play fields for
Right.
schools. So that's not gonna be done, and everything is outside the 200-foot buffer.
Just a quick note for Michael mentioned the vegetation on the west side. We didn't show it on the plan, but we have no intention of disturbing or touching anything to the west.
It provides all the vegetation in front of provides that good screen, natural screen.
And as for the cypress trees, and we're in discussions with the neighbors right now to figure out what, they would like, and we're planning with them to put, buffer trees on that northwest side.
So do you have space between the road and the two new buildings to the south to put a buffer?
There are trees that exist in this area now. It's not exactly a thick vegetation. We could add shrubbery, to the south here along the property line if the board saw fit.
Well, there,
I think the plan shows a couple shrubs being added potentially, but there is vegetation all here.
There was another plan, I don't know if I have it here, but there was another plan that shows some additional. I'll pull it up one second.
So the Westport River goes underneath
177.
to the east of where you are?
Yes, this is the bridge of David. Oh, yeah.
This
there's
shows some additional.
shrubbery there. If you're familiar with the site, our other site, Coastal Storage up at 519 and 549, there's some plantings along the highway, right along 177 would be something similar to that.
And I haven't looked at maybe the large plans, but do we have any idea what the mass of these buildings are?
With the,
I mean, how tall are they?
we do have we didn't include those with the original plan, but we will provide them. The height will be comparable to what the existing school to the south portion of this building, not the height of the gymnasium. So there will not be massive tall buildings.
How do they function? I mean, are these things with roll-up overhead doors?
No.
What?
So these two buildings specifically will be accessed on the east and west with a common hallway down the middle. And so we're different than the roll-up door facilities. We're open 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 2 on Saturday. So you're let in by an attendant and monitored during the time you're there. It's not 24-hour access or anything like that. And so you basically would pull in, if you're unloading into this building, you pull up to the loading door, which is at grade, and we have carts, little dollies. You come up, grab a dolly, and wheel your things into the storage unit. The attendant would open your unit for you and allow you to put your things inside. Currently, this portion of the facility is operated that way right now.
Yeah, that was a school.
Yes, and renovated the interior of the school. There's storage units now where the classrooms were. The concrete structure is still there, but there's storage units within.
So are you going to terminate the allowance of, currently of boats and other vehicles that are outside of these buildings?
The intention is not. We went through this with the ZBA, and one of the restrictions that they asked and requested was that we do no automobiles. So they limited it strictly to boats and RVs to limit any potential issues with the aquifer. But the intended, there is no, it's not shown on this plan. Sean and I talked about showing that on the updated plan, some outside storage space along the outside boundary on the existing pavement. If you're familiar with the site, it's like that now. There are RVs and campers parked outside.
So you're not gonna use these required parking spaces for that?
None of these will be used for that. This is customer parking only. The only places where outside storage would occur is essentially where they are parked right now, along the border of the property.
If there is outdoor storage, it just needs to be indicated on the
On the
plan,
plan.
or you'd have to come back for a site plan.
Yeah, we talked about showing those spaces.
And the road that goes out, there's an existing road that goes north to Union
Yeah,
Avenue.
we're abandoning that essentially. We have no intention of using that. It's not been used. It's gated. It's not shown, but I actually have a note in here, as you mentioned, to demonstrate that there is a gate there, and we're blocking that off.
Is that part of your property?
It is. Actually, the gas line for the facility comes in from Union Ave, so we have to retain ownership of that. But in terms of use and anything like that, no, we will not be using that for access.
No, okay. That answers my question, because I was gonna say if the fire department intended to use that as a.
No, we discussed that with them.
Access or something.
Originally, when it was a school, and they were set up for 300 students a day, I believe the requirement was there, and that's why the access was. But as a proposed use and set up here, the fire department said that they were okay with us continuing just accessing it as demonstrated.
So one more comment on this parking requirement. I noticed that, on the calculation, there could be as many as 42 spaces,
Yeah,
including
one space per 1,000 square
1,000.
feet.
plus 2 for the employees. And, but you have 21, and our planner has endorsed that, or you suggest that that's acceptable, meaning that I guess you don't have a lot of, well, let's say on a weekend, I don't know when your busiest time is, but are there more, how many storage units are there?
And currently on site, without the addition of these new buildings, we have 60 storage units here.
And with the additional?
The
When it's
two
all built
buildings to
out?
the south will add an additional 90 storage units. The building to the east, we haven't determined that yet. We're tossing around a potential layout for that right now.
So it's over 200 units.
Yes, and so Sean actually provided a report from Providence that
The company I was involved because this is a new phenomenon, the self-storage thing. It's become very popular, and it's kind of
Well, it's not new, I mean, it's been going on for years.
Yeah, but it's
The
becoming
gangbusters.
more and more you see mill buildings and everything, and most cities are having a hard time figuring out how many parking spaces.
Right.
So the city of Providence did a study, and
they
they don't determine it as a warehouse use. They determined that basically one space for every 50 units is what they require in their zone.
I would as you mentioned, our busiest season. So if you were to take just this building alone, we've seen since, I want to say September, over the last 3 months, like 40 people total. And on an average day, a busy day, between all of the facilities, this one, the one located at 519, we might see 5 to 7 people a day. It's not a high use. And right now, our current facility has parking. Ultimately speaking, if if somebody comes to the storage, they're not gonna park over here and then walk and go use the unit over here. If somebody calls, they say, hey, I'm gonna come to my storage unit, they show up, they park near the door, they unload their stuff, and then they leave. So essentially, if you had somebody, which has never happened, at every single door, that would be the most busy you would see. And typically that has never happened. And we've been open since 2003. And they've just continued to add more units. And like I said, on a busy day, you might see 5 to 7 people across all of the facilities. So I personally think the 21 spaces is even an overburden. As Sean pointed out, Providence is doing 50, one space per 50 units. We could put 500 units here, and that would be 10 spaces. So.
And these are long-term rentals mostly?
Yes, yeah. Well, it's month to month, but most customers do stay for a long period of time.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I was moving some furniture down here from Vermont, and there's a storage area on Hathaway Road near 195.
140.
140, Route 140,
Yeah, and I went in there to inquire about renting a storage unit. And he takes me back to the office and he opens up a book and says, okay, Mr. Schmidt, how long are you gonna be staying here? I said, I'm not gonna be living in this thing.
Oh, you'd be surprised. You get some interesting requests, that's for sure.
So, the other question, if you're gonna be storing, as you are now, boats and RVs along the western boundary, how far away is that from neighboring houses?
In terms of like from the house itself to the proposed RV or from the property lines? It's right on the property line.
No, I know, that's why I'm asking.
Couple, probably about 150 to 200 feet. We've met with, on site with numerous abutters, most especially the Olivers that are up to the north here. They abut the Union Ave portion and had concerns about the lighting and some things like that. And we met on site with them, and they expressed that they had no concerns about the storage being along the property line. But as we mentioned, we do intend on putting some trees and creating more of a natural vegetated buffer there. As for this portion of it, our nearest abutter, actually here now, Mr. Medeiros, is probably about 500 feet to the northeast. And we have 2 houses, the Olivers here, and then there is Carol Ann Nadu, who is somewhere in this portion.
If you can go to the existing condition, and go to the locus map, and maybe zoom in a little.
Oh, yeah, I see here.
So you can see this existing.
Sorry, I'll zoom.
No problem. So you see the existing facility and the location of the houses in relation to where the storage space is.
Okay.
There's a wetland system over here. This grade is probably 7 feet higher than the parking lot itself, as is the rest of most of the site is much lower than the highway we go by. So the headlights and things like that are concerned typically aren't here because it's so much lower than the surrounding property.
And the RVs create even a little bit more of a buffer from the lighting flowing off of the building.
So, are you going to give us a light schedule?
That's included on the plan that Michael has up right now.
There's a list of the different lighting types. There's no photometric or something like that.
I believe there was a model shown with the throw and everything.
Yeah.
It's down lighting, it's all down.
Yeah, all
It's all
down.
downward.
It's consistent with the facilities that are operating now. All down lighting, low bearing LED lights.
And the entrance way, how's that gonna look?
To the facility itself. Will remain essentially the same with the addition of a security gate. Right now, we demonstrate the security gate here, but after talking with the fire department, we're going to bring that north just slightly to create a little bit more space for people exiting off of the highway. And so there'll be the security gate will be here, as well as an additional exit gate here, so that there'll be an entrance and an exit gate. But in terms of on and off the highway, it'll be exactly as it is right now. And just briefly, I wanted to point out, These are not utility lines, I mean, they are power, but it's simply for the lighting. The electrical service is actually here, and it's underground.
So I think you need, from the street, you need a adequate distance for a truck and a trailer. and a
Yes.
boat.
Yeah, there will be. Right now, this shows 38 feet to the corner here, but once we have it, the gate will be over here. It's probably more like 60 or 70 feet long. I can assure you, we have a temporary gate up right now that we've tested, and personally, I pulled in there with a 40-foot long trailer and truck, and there's plenty of room to park and open the gate, etc., without hanging out into the street.
Okay. So we do have some comments from various boards. Conservation says, unsure, you haven't filed yet.
Yep, we're aware that they're next on our list.
The assessors have no comment. Board of Health has no comment. What am I leaving out? Oh, building has no comment, or suggests approval. So how big is that sign? How tall?
I don't think we show a height. It's 6 feet, maybe. The intention is to keep it low.
There's an existing,
It's 80.
I don't know what's left of the
It's
existing.
5 for the post.
Yeah, I think
and
we
3
did.
for the sign.
Okay, yeah, 5 foot for the posts. The sign's 3 by 5.
Is it lit?
I mean, if we were to light it, it would be, the intention we are thinking is like a wooden sign similar to what's at 549 with the small lights pointed at it, just to, so you can read it. But not like a lit street sign or anything like that.
And it's right on the
It's
road
where
right
the
away?
existing, if you recall, Montessori had their sign along 177 right in the same exact spot. I don't know if the sign is still there or if the posts are still there, but I think there is a post still there.
So if you're sitting in a truck, will you be able to look to the west and see
Yes.
traffic?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you have a clear sight line from here to almost here all the way down. In terms of this side, you can see oncoming traffic as much as you can. It does curve there, so. But the sign would be lower than, the height of a car, so it wouldn't impede the
You see over it or under it?
Yeah, over it and around it. It is set back. I mean, it's demonstrated here that it's like right up on there, but I do believe it's set back a little bit more than as shown. You'd be able to see clear when entering and exiting.
Okay. Comments, questions from the board? The public hearing, so anybody would like to speak, or you want to say something?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I was struck about how rather cartoon-like the submission is. I was struggling to figure out how wide are these driveways and how to, there were no dimensions on the buildings. This was all proposed to be gravel, and now we hear that it's going to be paved. I can picture it functioning, sort of one-way circulation around between these new buildings. There's no spacing between the buildings. There's no dimensions on the pavement. The drainage calculations had these done as gravel roadways and.
Yeah, we ran, Ed ran the numbers today. It was only a 2% change between the asphalt and the gravel. The reason for that being is when Westport has it written that the aquifer protection treats gravel almost as the same impervious surface as asphalt. So it's a very minor change in that respect. As for the dimensions of the building and the roadways, as I mentioned, the intention is to provide an updated plan with widths and dimensions and building plans for our next submission to you guys.
So you have revised drainage and a revised basin plan as well?
Yes.
The basin didn't have to change. The drainage calculations are essentially an addendum to the current calculations. As for any changes to the current drainage plan, there really isn't any need. After the hydraulic calculations were completed, it was determined that there is no need for any real change here, even with the addition of asphalt.
Yep, I want to confirm that. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hi, for the record, I'm Ed Pesci of Pesci Engineering, with a team with Northeast Engineers on the drainage portion of this, and Mac is absolutely right. The little infinitesimal difference from gravel to pavement, because of the way the town of Westport forces us to look at the runoff coefficient for gravel, was a very, very small change, and it did not change and will not change the size of the retention basin. So all we need to do is provide your peer review consultant the updated PDF I've already provided Mac and showed Mac and Sean of that HydroCAD report for the proposed change, and we'll put a little cover letter on it, and we'll modify our O&M plan that we provided because the O&M plan talked about gravel road maintenance, which we'll no longer need to do. So we'll edit that and send that as well.
Does that address your concern, Mr. Bailey?
I think the
Well, I
dimension.
don't know. When I see it, I'll know what it says.
Yeah, so all the plans have been extensively dimensioned going forward. Offsets to all the building corners, building sizes, widths between buildings have all been dimensioned.
So the big wetland to the east,
Yes.
it's hard for me to determine from the small map here where the western boundary of that is. Is that the 25 feet to the heavy dotted line?
All the little flags.
I think, Sean, it is the,
If you go to, yeah, so that's the tree line, the wetlands line, really it's a condition. So the existing conditions show the wetlands flags, which are just inside the tree line. Here's the tree line, wetlands line. Conservation wants to see a 25-foot no activity, which we've held as part of this. This line, obviously, we have gone to conservation for accepted, but I don't think there's going to be a problem with it. It was flagged by someone else. Interesting enough, the property line runs 1 foot above the river. It doesn't run to the river, because the city of Fall River owns the 1 foot the whole way. But essentially, the wetlands line kind of mimics the tree line, the vegetation. They give it an existing playground right up against it, that's, and what's being developed, essentially what you see in the grass area for the fields.
So do you know how many square feet of buildings you're gonna have total?
it'd be 20,250 for the new buildings. The two buildings along the southern border are 6,000 square feet each, and the northeast building is 8,250. The two southern buildings are 60 feet by 100, and the building to the northeast is 50 by 165.
Which have been added to the plan.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions or comments from the board? And I'll open it up to the public.
Good evening, Board. Robert Allison, 1185 American Legion Highway. I live directly across from this on the side of the Nookchoke Village. Only concerns I have is the sign. I have people turn around in the driveway now, not only you guys next door. Maybe put it on the opposite side of the driveway so they can see it a little better. I'm gonna nitpick on a couple of things.
That's easy enough, that's not a
Yeah,
problem.
that's no problem.
Lighting.
Yep.
The height of the lighting, I know that's light pollution stuff.
Yep.
And the driveway that comes around, the building that comes out, we do a hardscape, something like a fence, because that's,
To provide headlights.
because as you come in, that's pointing right at my house.
Okay. Yeah, we were gonna address that with some trees and shrubbery.
Yeah, just sound a little more solid than that, because this type of, when the weather comes out, I think.
Yeah. Understood.
Was the lighting, the entrance, I'm just thinking, the AED's going too fast. Currently, you guys are using that for storage. Are they gonna be able to work on anything in there?
Absolutely not.
That's stopping.
That,
Okay.
so that happened, we actually addressed that with the ZBA.
Yeah.
There was a specific customer that we caught doing things that they should not have been doing on the site, and they've since been removed, and they're no longer storing anything on site.
And is it still gonna be used as basketball and baseball?
No.
Stopping that?
That will be ending in the near future.
March.
Yeah, after the season, after the winter season, so.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes, sir?
Hi, my name is John Medeiros, at 44 Union Avenue. Could you bring this down?
The other way.
The other way.
So the other way, you want to go?
Okay. This is my property here. We had some concerns, originally, with the two retaining ponds, but that's been taken care of. We had concern with the excess fluid being used all night long with the bed lights and whatnot. And that's been resolved, they're not gonna use that excess fluid. The other problem we had was with the heights of the building, which is not gonna be any higher than what's there now, so. And he's gonna put all special lighting facing down, it's not gonna shine in anybody's windows at night. So, we had a meeting there actually, and, we resolved all my problems, and I think all the neighbors' problems, and, I think they're gonna be very good neighbors, they were very accommodating, and they took care of all our problems, and I'm okay with it, I think they're gonna be good neighbors.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so we're gonna need to continue to a date certain?
So I don't have a recommended date for when we should continue this to. I think that's something that the applicant can, I mean, we would need to go out at least a month. We couldn't do 2 weeks, but if a month is sufficient, or 2 months, however you want to do it.
First of all, can we close the public hearing? Is that acceptable, seeing as we've heard?
Well, you're gonna be changing and submitting more stuff, right?
We'll just,
So we can't.
Okay. Okay. As for, we were thinking a month, just so that we could have time to address all of the concerns, get a clean letter from SW Cole, and, we're gonna apply to conservation.
So if we do it a month from now, it means you got 2 weeks to do that, right?
Yes,
So that we have time.
2 weeks to provide you with updated plans. and-
Right.
Yep.
So we need 2 weeks for Cole to look at it and come back to us.
Yep, we're just about ready to do that now. Obviously, bringing it tonight wouldn't have made much sense, so we have most of the changes already made.
And you have enough input from Michael and the board?
Yeah, we've been in direct contact with Michael regularly, and meeting with you guys today was crucial. The applicant is requesting, without, any formal approval, but just a notice. The building inspector has expressed that he would issue a conditional foundation permit for the southern buildings. Everybody is weighed in on that. Conservation, fire department, planning, zoning, and the applicant is requesting at his own risk with, you know, if something were to come up and he would have to change it, that would be his own risk and assumption that he is able to proceed, just because before the weather comes in and starts getting too cold to pour concrete, if we could get the concrete slabs in and hold before the next meeting.
Haven't you already done this?
No, the slabs are not poured. Right now, the site has purely been graded. But the grade has held and everything is in place, and before the rain comes in and washes away all the work and, you know, grading that's been done, the applicant is requesting that that
Rain's
be,
coming tomorrow.
yeah.
That was Thursday.
As long as it's not like Noah's Ark, I think we'll be okay.
Not Thursday.
But have you, if you've been doing a lot of site work, have you provided the adequate runoff bales and stuff?
Yes, there is a bale all the way around the entire buffer of the property for all the wetlands. And the work that was completed back in August, prior to the knowledge of the applicant that we were in the aquifer. And as soon as we were alerted by the building inspector that we were in the aquifer, all work has ceased and nothing has been done in over 3 months now. So the hope would be just to put the slabs in so that they can cure and sit there before the weather comes in.
So you're asking us?
It's not really an ask, as you guys can't really say yes. It's more of just a request and, you know, kind of a nod from the board. Without doing it, basically without doing it without anybody's permission to, you know, kind of alerting everybody to the fact that that would be the intent, at the applicant's own risk.
Mr. Long?
I'm Mr. Long, I own the property.
If you come up to the microphone, so when people look on TV, they can hear what you're saying.
What's that? I'm Jimmy Long, I'm the applicant. I own Coastal Self Storage. I also own the building as McCady LLC. I'm asking for it because when this project started, I had an engineering firm, engaged with them last September. Give or take, it was quite a long time. And as soon as I got notified I was in an aquifer, I shut the project down. That day. I pulled out all the equipment. Ralph's here, he'll acknowledge that. I shut it all down. Haven't done anything there since. The two pads that they're talking about, like you show in the front. Right now, when we were getting ready to do it, I was going with Ralph, I was thinking it was gonna be before you guys 4 months ago. But when we got into the aquifer, it shut everything down and it changed everything. Calculations, the engineers had to come in, so it changed what we had to do. So what I'm asking the board, and I asked Ralph if he would be able to give me a permit for just the footing and the slab at my own risk to put it in there to keep the project moving before the bad weather came in. He said, Jimmy, I can give that to you, but you'll have to do it at your own risk, meaning if this went sideways, it's at my risk. The project is a great project. I'm a good neighbor. I've been in this town since I was 16 years old. I'm not going anywhere. The project, as far as I'm concerned, is storage. Light impact for the area, to the neighbors, couldn't be a better neighbor. So what I asked the board, I don't want to do anything without letting everybody know what I'm doing. That's the way I've always done my projects. So that's why I had my son, my attorney, but represent me. But at the same time, I don't want to do something without people know. Because when I started, everybody's like, what's he doing? When I started it, Ralph knew everything that was going on. I started just moving the dirt in the front, which was legal under town bylaws, what I was doing. I wasn't trying to supersede anybody, but as soon as I found a problem, I shut it down. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. And I haven't done anything in 3 months. So I'm done that. Thank you.
So, I don't know what the opinion of the board is, but what do you suggest, Michael?
I would advise against it. Any changes to the site plan will then require modifications to what's actually on site. But we don't issue building permits, so, you know.
I don't know what authority we have to say, I don't know what
Yes or
we're
no,
being
right,
asked
right.
to say. You know, and then, you know, our job is to do the site plan review.
Right.
Essentially, as he pointed out, I think the main concern here was just making sure that everybody knew what was going on. As much as little things have changed here and there, the one thing that hasn't changed throughout any revisions and anything that we've shown any board are these two southern buildings. They have remained, you know, where they are. The fire department has commented on their location, the distances, etc., expressed that they're okay. So any minor changes are not going to have any bearing on the location of those two buildings.
The code enforcement officer is here, he'll explain to you what he's going to give me. And that's the last thing that I'll say. That's what Ralph's in the room, he's the code enforcement officer, so.
Ralph, you're welcome to come up, but I'm not sure what we can do.
Ralph Souza, Building Inspector, Town of Westport. The code that the section of the building code they're talking about is section 107.3.3, phased approval. I can give it to anybody for anything. They take that permit at their own risk. Every house in this town gets a foundation-only permit first before they get the permit to build a house. That way, if something goes south on the site, when I get the as-built, I see it, it's a cease and desist. So in the same case with these two buildings, he wants to put these two foundations in at one time because of the weather. He puts the foundations in at his own risk. It's phased approval, section 107.3.3, and he does that, but he also submits me an as-built from the engineer saying that the location of them to make sure it matches these plans. And that way, it stops at that. He doesn't get any more until he goes through this board and the Board of Appeals to get the approvals, then I work on the permits for the buildings.
I can understand what he needs to do
We need a microphone.
with winter conditions coming in, and he's prepped and ready. And I mean, you stated it's at his own peril. I don't think we have anything to lose by allowing him to do it, and I appreciate that they notified us that they would like to do that.
Right. That's what this is all about, to notify that that's what he wants to do. He asked me to just, I could just issue it, but I said to him, I'd just soon see it go through the process first. Let it be known what's happening over there.
Yeah, I think as Mr. Taylor said, we don't have any authority over this, but as a courtesy, you're notifying us that this is the route you're taking.
This is the route I'll take with it, only, up to this point, phased approval, foundations only, just so that put them in, get them out, they're in before the weather comes.
I don't know what everybody's concerned about. We live in the Massachusetts Riviera. It's so warm.
Yeah, but then it changes tomorrow, it'll be snowing, so.
So, okay, I mean, there's nothing we're gonna vote on. I mean, that's.
Okay.
It's
I'm
up to
satisfied,
you
I'm
and
satisfied
so-
with the board. We, as mentioned, this was purely to, let the board know the intent. Are you going to be meeting, Michael, a month from now? And I know with the holidays it gets.
The next available hearing is January 14th. We're booked on the 17th,
Okay.
and that would be the next meeting that this could make is December 17th, but we're booked for that, so then the next one out is the 14th, unfortunately.
Of January.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you be pouring concrete this week, next week?
I don't think it'd be next week, but sometime hopefully before January 14th.
I can either be on the truck.
I mean, at least at that point, we'll be able to get through conservation and address any concerns before then.
So, before we vote on the continuance, the one thing that I would like to see is a photometric plan.
Say
A photometric plan.
for the lighting?
Right.
Okay.
So,
I think we submitted one.
I haven't seen one, so
Okay.
they could have, but I haven't seen one. If you have, you don't have to do it.
Yeah,
So,
we'll make sure we have that.
okay, so I'd entertain a motion to continue to January 14th, at what time?
6:15.
6:15.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
Back to the planner's report.
Yep.
Municipal vulnerability preparedness 2.0 update. On Saturday, we're going to have an event with our MVP grant group from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the library. The grant group has been doing public engagement on climate resilience over the summer, and so to close that out at the end of summer and early fall public engagement, they've come up with the data that we've generated from that public engagement, they've come up with 3 different project ideas, one of which is mapping and removing hazard trees in Northwestport. Second is providing emergency kit supplies, particularly for hurricanes, for those in need. And then third is improving the town's social media platform, and then having some related educational campaigns for issues like tick-borne illnesses, emergency preparedness resources, and other forms of assistance. So the point of this event is to be an open house. There'll be free food and things for kids to do. And for the adults, they can come vote on which project they think is the preferred one that would have the biggest impact on the town. And then we would implement that with a small grant from the MVP program. So that is Saturday. And then lastly, our preliminary budget for town meeting 2025. It looks, it's the exact same thing I proposed 3rd year in a row, so I'll go down to it. So Jim Hartnett has given his preliminary approval of that, and so we have to go to the Finance Committee to get the budget approved for town meeting 2025. Jim, if you would like to go, their meetings are 6:30 and they're still virtual. The dates we can go are December 10th, January 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th. So basically every once a week in January. And they are,
Well, let me look at my calendar at home.
they're Tuesdays too, so that could
Be a problem.
be a conflict.
Just to avoid our meetings.
We still have all of our grant match for the professional services, so that's good.
So the one that you mentioned was hazard trees in Northwestport. What's wrong with South Northwestport?
Well, the purpose of the grant is to, in particular, do outreach in the town's environmental justice communities, which are communities that are less likely to have the means to deal with resilience issues like that. And so, it's a very small grant too. It's only $50,000. If you're probably going to focus more on mapping than taking anything down, just because depending on the trees that you're dealing with, that money will go through very fast.
Okay.
So I think we would start in Northwestport, focusing on the environmental justice community, then expanding outward from there. If there's money left over, then we can go other places.
Okay, so this meeting is at the library on Saturday from 11 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, who's hosting it?
We're hosting it with Serpent.
Do you know who it's Serpent?
Who? Audrey Matthews.
Okay.
It was previously Danica was working on it, but since they've hired on so many people, she's moved up in the ranks and she's now the head, so it's been delegated to other stuff.
Okay. And there's refreshments just for the big audience, there's refreshments and things for kids to do while the adults give us their opinion.
Just stop by and submit your vote and carry on. Be good to get the feedback, and we'll also be doing a survey afterward, but I'd like to talk to people and get their feedback on the different projects.
Okay. Correspondence.
There's a construction report for Meadowbrook Farms, which is subdivision on Granite Post Road. They've installed the surface course, asphalt surface course of the roadway. There's a series of photos in your packets. Derek Mello from SW Cole was out on site and to witness the installation of the asphalt surface course as well as some of the sidewalks in that neighborhood. He didn't have anything to report on it. It was just more of a status update, but there have been a number of different, recently a number of different subdivisions that I think there's been a push to get the sidewalks completed and the top course of the road installed. I would guess in anticipation of petitioning the town to take over those roads. But we haven't received any petitions to take over anything to date.
So it's nice to see somebody putting the top coat on and doing the sidewalks at the same time, even though this is probably 20 years in the making.
I think 97, 98.
That long?
Yeah, because I was doing phase 2 in Westport Meadows when that was being built.
So anyway, it shows it can be done. Maybe you ought to send these pictures to Kavori so that we can get the idea. Hey, it isn't so hard. That's good. Minutes of June 18th. Oh, there's a lot of pictures. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So the minutes of June 18th, those should be familiar. Those are minutes that the planning board did not have an adequate list of exhibits in those minutes, and so there was a complaint to the Attorney General's office about it not complying with the open meeting law. This was found to have an open meeting law violation, and we were issued a finding. We were ordered to then modify the minutes with some guidance from the Attorney General's office to ensure that it's compliant with the open meeting law, and also obviously make sure that future minutes will meet those specifications. But I have sent that particular draft of the minutes to the Attorney General's office, and they said that that would be sufficient for the order.
So entertain a motion to.
This is the, sorry, just to clarify, I understand, this is the second revision we're looking at, and I can't see what's been revised. Is it just adding the documents, list of documents, or is there more?
I think a previous iteration said list of attachments, and it should be a list of documents and exhibits.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of October 29th.
Mr. Chairman, I think these reflect the meeting, and I would move their approval.
We were both absent, so.
Yeah.
Yikes, can we vote on it? We only have 2 people.
The draft minutes they've been posted online, right? Okay, so just after this meeting, post the draft minutes on
Okay.
the planning board's webpage, and then we can table this one until we have.
Okay, let's table that one.
That'll be the case for the executive session minutes as well.
They're very good they're very good minutes, and I learned a lot about the meeting. It was very efficient, 1 hour and 3 minutes. It's a record.
That was a quick one.
Okay, so we're gonna pass over the executive session minutes.
Yes, we have the same problem.
Matters not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours. Just to let people, Manny already knows, but I alerted the select board on Monday night that we really need to look after the dead trees before somebody gets killed. So I think hopefully we'll have it on their agenda for the next
I
meeting.
think that they're going on. Also, I had a request in this, I thought we had a tree warden. So I think it is highway. So, but, I mean, obviously highway is way underfunded, but, I mean, $50,000 grant to map this stuff would go a long way in highway's pocket. They own a bucket truck, they probably could take care of a lot of this stuff.
Right.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And our next meeting is December 3rd.